and Iowa hoops have a big week, and we are joined today with Zach Hiney, a fellow Hawkeye reporter. Do you still work with Sports Illustrated? Still working out with Sports Illustrated.
Yes.
So excited to join you today, Zach. Again, it has been about 2 months since we talked last, and today
Yeah.
we got lots to talk about in this quick 30-minute stream. Zach, first off, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. It's March and it's almost NCAA tournament time. We got a few games tonight in the first four, so I'm ready to just watch some hoops and hopefully see both Iowa basketball teams advance through the weekend.
Yeah, it is the first time the Iowa men have been in the tournament since the 22 to 23 season when they lost to Auburn. They were on the other side. They were the 8 seed against Auburn, and now they're the 9. I think first off, let's jump right into that one. I mean, we'll talk about the women in a second, but this men's team, I mean, it's Ben McCollum's first year. I think all you could really ask for was a March Madness appearance. I think Ben McCollum has achieved exactly what we wanted in this first year. You weren't expecting a Big Ten title. You wanted 20 wins. You wanted 10 Big Ten conference wins. You wanted an NCAA appearance, and you got it in year one with Ben McCollum. What's your initial takeaways from this year one from Ben McCollum?
Yeah, I think it's a successful year one under Ben McCollum over in Iowa City. And, some people have some unrealistic expectations. I think especially when you bring in a player the caliber of Bennett Sturts and you know that you only have him for 1 year. I think some people put a lot of pressure on that team to try and win with Sturts because you never know if or when you're going to get a player as good as him again or how long it's going to take. And so, there's definitely some of that. And there were a couple of games this year that Iowa shouldn't have lost. You think about the road losses to Maryland and Penn State that were just mind-boggling how they could drop a game there, and some close losses. You think about the Michigan game or, make a play or two there on the road at Purdue. You might be able to win that game. You blow a halftime lead to Iowa State. I mean, this Iowa team has been in it with a lot of really good teams. Just, they come up a bit short. But now you're in March. You've made the NCAA tournament. I think as long as they don't lose by 30 on Friday, I think people are going to have a very positive outlook on year one under McCollum. And I don't believe that they're going to lose by 30 on Friday. This is going to be a tight game. Now, you would love a win. I think a win on Friday would really help accelerate what McCollum is building, regardless of what might happen in a round of 32 game. But I think overall it's hard to complain about an NCAA tournament appearance in year one under a new head coach. I mean, heck, ask Indiana if they would, prefer to be in the NCAA tournament this year. They missed in year one under Darren DeVries, which is kind of a fun thing to look back on. Is I know a lot of Iowa fans wanted DeVries over McCollum last spring. And it's only one season, but it looks like early on Iowa made the right choice with bringing in McCollum.
It truly does. Yeah. And just pulling up their schedule here this year, they were in almost every single game. There was that blowout loss to Michigan State early in the season. And then there was that Illinois game. And then there was the home Purdue game. Those are the only ones that I can really think of where Iowa truly wasn't competing in these games. And, throughout this season, you look at this schedule and you're right. Obviously, you're right. You got that big Nebraska win. I truly think that Nebraska win has helped Iowa so much because you can kind of look back at that and say, you know what, we beat a top 10 team. We beat a top 25 team even. And, they had 5 quad 1 wins. I think by the end of the season was 4 or 5 quad 1 wins. And you were able to flex in a UCLA win into a quad 1 win. You were able to flex in that Ohio State win into a quad 1 win. And just really how the season works out. I remember these last couple seasons, Fran hadn't got a quad 1 win until the last couple weeks in the season. And, these Iowa teams these last couple years were constantly on the bubble. And, this McCollum style of offense has been so difficult to get used to, right? Wasting the whole shot clock down to the last couple of seconds. We're used to Fran where, you're having Peyton Sanford pull it, Jordan Bohannon pull it with still 20, 15 seconds left on the shot clock, and they're going for 100 points. So I think, when we talk about basketball, there's that stat that the last 25 national champions have been in the top 25 of defense. And one reason why, as an Iowa fan, you should feel confident about this program is that this program now is focused on defense. Yeah, we're not trying to shoot the lights out anymore against these opponents. Putting 100 on the opponent and hoping they score 99. You know what I mean? We're playing defense now. We're playing solid offense, but it's just kind of a hard thing to get used to.
Yeah, it's going to be an adjustment period for Iowa fans. You watch 15 years of your program doing and playing basketball one way, and now all of a sudden you're bringing a new head coach, new players, and I was kind of playing almost the opposite, where they're prioritizing defense, they're prioritizing a slower pace, as compared to what we saw in the Fran McCaffrey era. And so it's going to take some time to get adjusted there. But I think Iowa's in the right direction when it comes to competing. I don't know if Iowa's ever going to be a program that's going to be a national championship contender, but I definitely think with the resources that we've seen them put into football, we've seen them put into women's basketball, I think there's no reason why the men's basketball team can't be a perennial 5 to 6 seed or better in the NCAA tournament each season, with the potential to, if the right team comes together, if they get hot, make an Elite Eight, or a Final Four if things really, go their way. Not this season, of course, but going forward. And so I think the head coach is in place, and you feel really good about that if you're Iowa. There's obviously a lot of questions we can have later on about the offseason. How do you replace Ben Sturts and all these other seniors that are not going to be here next year? What does the roster look like, transfer portal stuff and whatnot. But right now it's just exciting to be back in the tournament. I'll say that it's always, regardless of what the matchup is, to watch your team in an NCAA tournament game, and you get to hear the music playing, and you get to and get the big national TV spotlight and the national announcing crew and all this stuff. Like it just feels big, and it's great to see Iowa back there. And I think their first round matchup is, out of all the 8-9 matchups, out of all the 8 seeds that Iowa could have gotten, I think Clemson's a pretty decent draw for them in a 9 matchup. And we can transition into talking about this game if you want to, Landon.
Iowa is currently a 1.5 point favorite according to DraftKings, which is interesting because Iowa, Clemson's got 3 more wins than them. I think Iowa truly, when you look at this right here, Bennett Sturts averaging 20 points a game. I mean, I don't think he was averaging 20 points a game going into January 1st. I seriously think Bennett Sturts played better in Big Ten play than he did in non-conference. And I think that's amazing to a guy who played Division II basketball for 2 years, went to Drake, now here at Iowa. It's truly amazing. And, you look at these two teams, very similar in points scored and points allowed. Both of them averaging 75 to that 74 range, and both of them allowing about 66 points a game. I truly think, Zach, where this game is going to be decided is right here within the rebounds game. Clemson out-rebounds Iowa on average by about 5 rebounds a game. And when we see steals and turnovers, this is going to be a rebounds and steals game. You know what? The assists are great. The blocks are great, but this is going to be a game where we're going to see who can get the most rebounds. Can Manial be physical? Can Fulgaris be physical? Can, Tavian Banks? This could be Tavian Banks' last game. You know what I mean? Like this truly could. And just looking at this Iowa roster and saying like, this March Madness run, Bennett Sturts will be fine. Bennett Sturts will bang threes. Cooper Koch will make threes. Isaiah Howard will play fine. But how will our bigs play? Because in March Madness, you need everybody. And I feel like we've had very inconsistent bigs always this year, right? And I think that's a big piece of it, Zach.
Yeah, no doubt about that. You look at the rebounding numbers, Clemson is out-rebounding Iowa by about 5 a game this season. But their starting big man, Carter Welling, is out for the year. He tore his ACL in the ACC tournament. He's their leading rebounder at just over 5 boards a game. That's a big loss for Clemson. A team that could have had a pretty decent advantage in the post if Welling was healthy. He's not. And so, a chance there for Iowa to kind of even things up in the post. Clemson's a very deep team. They average 74 points per game as a team, but their leading scorer is averaging 12 points a game. And so they get production from a lot of different guys. RJ Godfrey is their leading scorer. He's kind of the one guy at the dynamite scorer that, could easily pot 20 to 25 points if he gets cooking. But they're a very deep team at Clemson. And so and they've gotten a lot of consistent production from, 8 to 9 guys this season. And so it's going to be a test for Iowa, who hasn't gotten that consistent production from up and down their lineup. It's been most games, it's Bennett Sturts take over, score 25 points and do just enough to win. And when he does that, Iowa looks good and they win games. But when Bennett Sturts, might have an off game, maybe he only scores 18, Iowa's in trouble because they're not getting the consistent, production from everyone else. And so this this game against Clemson and any further games, if they should advance in the NCAA tournament, is really about everyone else. Because if you're an opposing defense, you're going to put 2 on Bennett Sturridge. You're going to say, literally let anyone else beat us. And if they do, you tip your cap and you move on. But it's a big tournament for Tavion Banks, as you mentioned, a guy that we've seen have some really nice games this year, and then have other games where he looks a little checked out, where he isn't able to get into a rhythm. And same with Alvaro Fulgaris and Cam Maniau. Those guys we see them when they're at their best, they're really good players, but they just have some inconsistent performances that have let Iowa down. And so what can you get from those guys? And the one that I'm watching for, and the guy that I think can really be he's a big swing factor for Iowa in this tournament is Cooper Koch. He's a guy that is very capable of going 5 of 8 from 3 and putting up 18 points in a game and really helping Bennett out when it comes to supplying points. But he's also a guy that we've seen go 2 for 11 from 3 and just not find a stroke. And usually in those games, Iowa loses. And so what can they get from Cooper Koch? Can he be the sharpshooter that Iowa needs him to be? If he can, they can make a little bit of a run here. If not, it could be a short time down in Tampa for them.
Yeah, it could be a short time. And, I do think Iowa is going to win this game. I have Iowa winning this game in all my brackets. I think this Iowa team, this could be a big tournament for them, right? You talk about year one, there's not a lot of expectations, but I think, and hear me out on this, I think they truly have a really good opportunity when I look at this bracket. You know what? If you win, you're probably going to play the 1 seed Florida, unless we got a 16 over a 1, which probably won't happen. But 1 seed Florida and Iowa, besides Michigan, I don't really know a 1 seed that I would like to see the Iowa Hawkeyes go up besides the Florida Gators. You're avoiding Duke. You're avoiding Arizona. Right? You would wish it wouldn't be a 1 seed, but honestly, that would be a game of the year. But we've seen Iowa compete with these higher seeds. You know what I mean? We saw Iowa take Michigan toe-to-toe. We saw Iowa take 2 seed Purdue and 2 seed Iowa State down to the wire in games on the road. So in a neutral site, why can't Iowa hang with Florida if they can beat Clemson? And if they win that game against Florida and they make it to the Sweet 16 for the first time in this century, in the 2000s, they have a very good shot at making a run towards the Elite Eight, the Final Four, whatever. That's kind of getting ahead of myself. But honestly, this Iowa team has a good opportunity here if we're talking March Madness-wise. With obviously you would want to play a 2 seed. I was actually kind of hoping they were the 7 or 10, because then you could potentially play a 2, someone like a Iowa State or Purdue like that. But obviously this is how it works. But Zach, I think you can see this too, that this could be a fantastic opportunity for Iowa to test themselves against Florida.
Yeah, if they get by Clemson, it's a big if. I have Iowa winning as well. I think the Welling injury is massive in this game, but they could lose this game for sure. It's a toss-up, as all 8-9 games are. But assuming Iowa can get past Clemson, which I think is possible, Florida would be a very interesting matchup for them. I don't know how well Iowa matches up with Florida on the surface, because you look at Florida, they're a team that's massive. It's Condon and it's Hauk and a couple of those other guys that are just really great in the paint. Florida would have a massive advantage on the boards, on the glass, second chance opportunities. So Iowa would really have to scrap and claw, their way to keep in that game. But out of all the 1 seeds, Florida's probably the weakest one. Duke and Arizona, I think, are kind of on their own level. Michigan is really good, but we've seen them be a little vulnerable this season. And Florida as well. They've been are really good, but they're coming off a pretty poor performance in the SEC tournament, a bad loss to Vanderbilt where they lost by, I think, 15 points. They've been kind of streaky shooting the ball. And so if you can get an off night, an off game from them from behind the arc, you might have a chance. I just worry about the rebounding in the paint, because, even if Florida's missing threes, if they're getting the offensive board and their second chance points, I was going to have a lot of trouble staying in that game. And I just don't know where they get the size, to compete with Florida. But, if it's the beauty of the NCAA tournament and March Madness, is that it is truly one game. Like if you show up and you outplay your opponent for 40 minutes, it doesn't matter what happened in the regular season. It doesn't matter how many games you won or you lost, because you're going to be moving on. And so I think I would love the opportunity to see Iowa against Florida. I think that would be If they can beat Clemson, I
Yeah,
would be perfectly happy. I just see
that would be crazy.
I want to see where they're at, where they can compete, because we've seen Iowa kind of get blown out in some of these games against higher seeds in previous NCAA tournaments. Um, outside of that Tennessee game versus the 2 seed, I think back in 2019, we've seen Iowa on the wrong end of some lopsided results. So like a Villanova, I think about and some of those games, and so it'd be fun to just kind of test where Iowa's at as a program. But tough matchup, but anything can happen, and I would love to see it.
The 2018 team reminds me actually a lot of this team, and I don't know if you'll see this comparison. Let me get this here pulled up here. But this 2018 team that had Luka Garza, I think was a sophomore that year. You had Joe Wieskamp as a freshman. Obviously nowadays those guys probably would have sat out their freshman and sophomore year if they had all these redshirt rules that we have now as well. But you have a similar situation. You played a 7 seed in Cincinnati that was about your skill, and you took them to the wire. You beat. I could see it being like this, and then you played a really competitive game against Tennessee. But when you look at this 2018 and 19 season, it was very similar to this year. They beat a number 5 Michigan team that's like the Nebraska win. They lost some bad games on the road. They weren't too good towards the end of the season. And they only won 1 Big Ten tournament game and lost 1. So very similar to that 2018 and 19 season. And I really see the future of Iowa potentially being like that, right? You got a guy, I was pulling up the roster here. You got a young, talented Iowa roster that has a lot of guys. Ben McCollum's son. Talk about guys like Trey Thompson, the freshman, the 6'8", talented freshman. Was he the 4.5 star or 5 star? Yeah. Trey Thompson was. And you look at these guys, obviously you're going to have Sturts graduating, but who's going to be the point guard next year? Are we going to see Cale Combs get that opportunity as a senior? Are we going to see maybe a guy like I could see maybe them even moving Tate Sage to point guard potentially. I don't really know if I would like that, but I think Cale Combs will probably take the point guard position next year after Bennett Sturts leaves, unless any of these guys transfer. But you'll get Fulgaris back probably next year, most likely. I mean, I expect that Bennett Sturts will be the only guy that's going to the NBA. I don't think Tavion Banks is going to go to the NBA, but just this Iowa roster next year has potential, and you got some really good recruits coming in. And if you remember that 2019 to 20 Iowa basketball season when, Luka Garza was now a junior and he had finished his first 2 years at Iowa, they really overperformed that year. And they kind of were bad toward the ending a little bit, but I think they would have made a really good run in March Madness if that tournament would not have got canceled. So the future of Iowa basketball is really bright, and I think the men's side at least. Any other thoughts before we go to the women's?
No, I'm with you there. I'm just looking forward to seeing Iowa back on the national stage in the NCAA tournament.
You got to get them back to being preseason number 5 like they were in 2020 to 2021 season.
Yes.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the women. So I'll be honest with you, Zach. I am not as educated on the Iowa women's basketball team. I watched, I think, every single Big Ten tournament game. I understand a little bit about this team. I know that, obviously – Addie Deal, the 5-star, kind of finally has this is her first year, right? This year she came in this year.
Yes.
Addie Deal did, yeah. And I saw that this Iowa women's team this year, they got Chit Chat right out of the transfer portal. They got Stolke back for 1 last year, and so it kind of feels like this post Caitlin Clark team that this is a very talented team. And I just got to ask you, I have this team going to the Elite 8, playing South Carolina in my bracket. Is this a team that's going to be making a deep run this year in the NCCA tournament?
Yeah, I think they definitely can make a deep run there. They're a 2 seed. And a lot of people, nationally were kind of wondering why Iowa got a 2 seed. And I was a little confused by that discourse because I think a lot of those people just looked at what happened in the Big Ten title game. And now Iowa played terrible in that game. Like from the jump, it was a bad combination of Iowa not playing well and UCLA being really, really, really good. That UCLA
is mild.
Yes, UCLA is the second best, maybe even the best team in the country, depending on how you feel about UConn and the Big East Conference. But losing by 50 obviously persuaded some people to be a little down on Iowa. But this is an Iowa team that won, I think it was 24 games. They beat Michigan twice, who's a really good team. Lots of marquee wins for Iowa this year. and they were competitive in all their games except for the two against UCLA and the one against UConn. And those are the two best teams in the entire country by a mile. Iowa's a 2 seed. They open up. They should win their first round matchup. In round 2, they're probably going to get Georgia, a 7 seed, which will be a fun matchup for them. But again, at Carver, as Iowa hosts the first 2 rounds, it's hard to beat Iowa at Carver. It's very hard to do that. Ask any team on the Big Ten, in the Big Ten Conference about that. And so I think Iowa could win there, which would set them up for a potential Sweet 16 matchup with TCU, which would be a really fun matchup. Olivia Miles, the Notre Dame transfer, has been electric with the Horned Frogs this year. TCU was a runner-up in their conference title game as well. And so, it'd be a lot of fun to see Iowa take on that 3 seed with the winner most likely getting South Carolina. I think Iowa's probably capped at an Elite 8 run unless South Carolina somehow gets bounced before they get there. It'd be a tough matchup for Iowa, but this is a team that has really come together down the stretch. Losing Taylor McCabe was a massive loss for that team, and they really struggled after she went down. They lost 3 games in a row, and people kind of felt like the sky was falling. But then Taylor Stremlow comes in, and she's been really, really good. Chit Chat Wright's been elevating her game. Ava Hayden has made one of the more impressive freshman to sophomore jumps that you'll see from a player, being in the Big Ten Player of the Year conversations this year. Hannah Stolke is that steady veteran presence for them, and they've got they're not a very deep team. They only go about 7 deep. They have their 5 starters with Kylie Feuerbach being a great defender, and then they go Journey Houston off the bench, and then they give Addie Deal some minutes. And so, Addie Deal is probably your big X factor here because she had one of her better games against UCLA in that title game, despite the blowout loss. If she can keep playing up to that 5-star status off the bench for Iowa, they're going to be an even deeper team and more difficult to beat. But I think Sweet 16 at the very least, if they don't get out of the first weekend, it's probably a disappointing end to the season. But if you get to the Sweet 16 and you drop a close one to TCU, hard to complain. If you make the Elite 8, it's a perfect season. And you keep building from there. This team is still so young. You're only losing like a few seniors in Stolke and Feuerbach, but the future is bright there under Jan Jensen. She's done a fantastic job.
She has. She. I mean, like continuing over the success after Caitlin Clark, that's very impressive. I mean, to have I'll just say the best women's basketball player Iowa will probably ever have. Just leave your team and immediately. I mean, last year they got bounced in the second round at Oklahoma, but I actually appreciate you talking about that because I haven't really watched a lot of the women's games this year. I hope they do make a Sweet 16 run and an Elite 8 run. But, we'll see how that goes. I thought maybe for our last 5 or so minutes, we would do some trivia, Zach. Me. I don't really get to talk to a lot of Hawkeye fans. So one of my favorite games to play with Iowa fans is I like to play this game called Guess That Game. So we go back and forth. I'll just give you an example. I'll say, Zach, do you remember this blank game, this football game? And I give the year and I describe what happened in the game, and you tell me what the opponent was, and you can say like where it was at or whatever. So I love playing this game. My rules though is it has to be from 2017 to now, and you have to tell us what sport it is. So I'll start. I'll give you one. So do you remember this game in 2018 where Iowa was up by at least 10 points, and this away team came back and tied the game, and Iowa kicked a game-winning field goal in the last week of the college football season for regular season?
In the regular season. So 2018 in football, last game of the regular season. It's got to be Nebraska, right? Because, Iowa kicks a lot of game-winning field goals, walk-off field goals against Nebraska in the last decade. I think that was that Miguel Racino's?
It was Miguel Racino's. I think it was.
Yes, it was.
What's his name? TJ Hawkinson set it up with a nice catch. Iowa should have won that game by at least 2 touchdowns, but Adrian Martinez was good. All right, your turn.
Oh gosh. All right. I'll keep it in football.
Yeah, let's do football for right now. Yeah. I'm good at football. Basketball will be hard.
There's so much, and there's so many basketball games you could go with there. I'm trying to think of some of a football game there. Let's go 2023 Iowa football.
I'll do this one.
Do you remember the game where Iowa had their only 200 plus yard passing performance in a home win over a conference opponent?
2023, their only 200 passing yard game. I remember this one. It was on, I'll give you the date. It was on November 11th. They played Rutgers at home. It was the military appreciation game. Deacon Hill threw for, I think, 222 yards or something like that, and a 22-0 shutout. That's a good one that I would have forgotten. Yeah, those are. See, this is a fun game. I'll give you one. I like doing my favorite Iowa football season. I told you is 2019 season. So 2019. Do you remember this game? This was a loss, but a very close home loss. I think it was actually the only home game they lost all year. So that kind of gives it away. That's all I'm going to say. And there was a crazy touchdown towards the end of the game.
I do remember this game because I was at this game actually. Okay. Funny enough, they lost to Penn State at home. Brandon Smith had the late touchdown grab to give the fans some hope there at the end, but the defense couldn't get that last stop. Iowa was wearing those fun all yellow alternate jerseys. Not my favorite jerseys, but I applaud the ambition for trying something new. But yes, I was at that game, and it was a fun game. They lost, unfortunately, but yes, I do remember that.
All right. Eric, give me one more, and then we'll do one more championship round. So give me one more, and then we'll do one more round.
All right. Let's go. Let's go with 2017 because
2017. Okay. This is gonna be a little tough, but I'll get it.
Because that's one of my more underrated.
Okay, I'm gonna first start out by saying you can't give me the Ohio State game.
Nope.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can't give me the Ohio State game.
Not the Ohio State game. But Iowa won in overtime.
Okay.
Against this team early in the season.
I think they haven't played an overtime game. Well, no, they played that year. Did they play Northwestern in overtime? That was the last time I think Iowa played an overtime game. I'm sorry for cutting you off, but Iowa State 2017. 44-41 in overtime. Amir Smith-Marset with the touchdown catch. But yeah, Iowa isn't an overtime team. They don't play overtime. It feels like every game, like the Michigan State game this year, I was like, okay, we're going to go to overtime. There's like 30 seconds left. Just kneel the ball. And, obviously Mark Gronowski got all those completions. Okay, we'll do one more round, and then I'll get you out of here, man. Yeah. This is a championship round. I'm going to go with the 2020 season. This is a little niche reference, 2020 season. Well, this was personally one of my favorite games because they were down early in this road game against a conference opponent. It was in December. They only played 2 December games. They came back and won it in pretty dominant fashion. This was really when Spencer Petras out of all the quarterbacks had the Iowa offense humming. What game was this?
Gosh, and so they started that year 0-2, and then I think they rattled off 6 wins in a row to end the year. Their wins, I know that they beat Minnesota that year, but that was earlier on in the season. They beat Penn State that season, but I'm not sure if that was in December.
That was in Happy Valley, but they were winning.
I was in Happy Valley. Okay,
they were winning the whole game. Yeah.
Was that Nebraska? I'm thinking Nebraska or Illinois for some reason.
We played Nebraska at home, so it was Illinois. You got it. Yeah,
it was Illinois. Okay, got it. I vaguely remember them. I vaguely remember that Illinois game and them not playing well early on, and then Spencer Petras leading that comeback. Yeah, and I thought Iowa had their next great quarterback.
We all thought he was good. All right, last one from you. Give me one more, and then we'll get you off. But again, I appreciate this, man. So let's get one more in here.
Of course. I believe what year was this? I think it was 2021. Okay. I'll say it's a very infamous game. Iowa won the game, but they were the butt of a lot of jokes after winning this game.
Oh, wait. You said 21.
It might be 22.
Are you thinking of 22? Yeah, you're thinking.
I'm thinking of 22. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So this was week 1 against South Dakota State. They won 7-3. I remember watching that game
without scoring a touchdown.
without scoring a touchdown. And that
against
huge,
Mark Gronowski.
and against Mark Gronowski, I was about to say
Yeah.
that quarterback on the other side ended up being Iowa's starter. Well, again, Zach,
Yeah.
we appreciate it, man. The future of
Of
Iowa
course.
sports is bright. I told you, 2026 is going to be a special year for Iowa sports, and it starts with this week. And anyone watching, you can catch the Iowa men 5:50 Central Time on Friday, and do the women play Saturday at?
Yes, the women are on Saturday. I'm not sure of the time off the top of my head, but they do play Saturday.
They do play Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zach, we'll have to do this again more, man.
Yes.
Maybe next month or whatever. I just love talking to Hawkeye fans. It means so much to me.
Yeah,
but I'll let
fun.
you go, man. Thanks again, man, and have a great night, man.
Of course. I appreciate you having me on, Landon, and have a great night. And go Hawks. Hopefully they make a run here in the tournament.
Yeah, go Hawks. All right, we'll see you later.
All right. I'll see you.